It's finally Friday. It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show presented by Woodbine. I'm Scott Jagow along with Ray Paulick. We're so glad you could join us. Coming up, how much might the Japanese bet on the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf? But first, we have to talk about what's going on in Florida with what I would call two mockeries of a sham, with racing designed to maintain licenses for poker rooms and for slot machines. Ray, can you enlighten us as to the latest on this?
Well, this is in sort of the you can't make it up category. We documented a place called Oxford Downs a couple of years ago where up from nowhere sprang, a racetrack, and I put air quotes around racetrack because they had a bunch of races with two horses jogging about 100 yards. And according to the state of Florida's Division of Parimutuel Wagering, this is legitimate. You don't have to build a $100 million racetrack. All you need to do is follow a few skimpy rules they have in Florida, and you qualify for a parimutuel permit. And with a parimutuel permit in certain areas, you can also have a poker room. And depending on an upcoming Supreme Court ruling in Florida, you might also get slot machines. So from a very small investment, some shrewd entrepreneurs took advantage of a loophole that might permit them to open casinos in Florida, and they're using horses as kind of a sham.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the actual situation here with the racing, because the Division of Parimutuel Wagering approved a license for these people to conduct racing, right? Then they realized it was a sham and a con, and then they decided, well, let's see if we can get them out of business by filing a complaint rather.
Right.
And in this, a judge hears this complaint, and in the complaint, the judge describes what the racing is like. You have that in front of you. Can you?
I'll just read a couple of
it?
The judge writes, the races must be seen to be believed. As a rule, tired, reluctant, skittish, or disinterested horses moving at a slow pace down a dust-choked path. The gait of the racing horses ranged between a slow walk and a canter. They had 160 races over 5 days, and they handled a grand total of $20. They actually had to comply, they had to have a parimutuel machine there, which they did, and somebody associated with the thing made a few bets, and they're legal. It is just so outrageously insane. You have to wonder, is there anybody in Tallahassee that has a brain?
Yeah. So who is to blame here? Is it the Division of Parimutuel Wagering?
Yeah, I think so. They have nobody. They have no. It's a branch of government. It's not a regular. It's not a racing commission like you see in most states, where you have an interest in racing and you have an interest in the industry that supports it. The breeds that support it. Here you have a bunch of bureaucrats in the state capitol who are, who have these green visors over their, on, and they're looking down and they're reading the law and they're saying, yeah, well, they comply. They're a racetrack.
So what can be done about this? I mean, how do you stop it if these people are so dumb that they allow this kind of thing to go on? I mean, you can't. How do you stop that?
I don't know, and part of the problem here is that Hialeah Park has had normal or traditional quarter horse racing. They have now just recently signed an agreement with an in-house horsemen's association, whereby they might end up doing the same kind of sham racing that these other places are doing. And the truth of the matter is, there's nothing to stop Gulfstream Park from saying, you know what, we would rather just be a casino. We don't need to invest all these millions of dollars in backstretch improvements and all this and purse money. We can just create our own horsemen's association and have a few phony races a day involving horses walking down a dirt path. They could do that and comply with state law.
I don't know what else to say. It's just horrible. All right, let's move on.
And it's Found who's gone clear. Found by a couple of lengths from Hyde and Real. Going to press the stablemate all the way home. But Found wins the Arch Bridle. Hyde and Real second, Order of St George for third. What a day for Aidan O'Brien.
So last Sunday's Arc de Triomphe was the first race outside of Japan that Japanese bettors were allowed to bet on legally. Of course, the rules stipulate that you have to have a Japanese entry in that race, and there was one in the Arc who finished 14th. But the story here is that they bet $40 million on a race that went off at 11 p.m. in Japan. What does this tell you?
Well, this tells me that Churchill Downs made a really smart move when they did the Japan Road to the Kentucky Derby, giving one spot in the starting gate to a horse from Japan. Because if they can build the Derby up in Japan the way the Arc de Triomphe has been built up in Japan over the last 10 to 15 years, a lot of people in Japan will have great interest in the race, and they'll bet $40 million. That would be the sixth biggest day of handle in the United States behind the three Triple Crown days, the Kentucky Oaks, and Breeders' Cup Saturday. It's just a ton of money.
Well, how much of a cut does, say, Churchill Downs get or the Breeders' Cup get with these races that the Japanese can legally bet on?
Well, simulcast contracts are secret, but the Derby and the Breeders' Cup probably get close to 10% for the signal that they sell to other racetracks. For Japan, it's my understanding it's a lot less than that. It's probably 5%. But 5% of $10 million, if they handle $10 million on a Breeders' Cup race, which is coming up, or if they handle $20 million on the Derby, that's a significant amount of money.
Yeah, so the next one potentially is the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, because there is a Japanese horse that is going to go in that race. What's your over-under on how much the Japanese will bet on that? Which I don't even know what time that would be in Japan, but maybe early in the morning.
It'll be about 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning on Sunday in Japan, which, hey, you and I have gotten up early to see races, right?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be less than 10 million. I think closer to 5 million.
All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show presented by Woodbine. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.